My name is William van Voorthuizen. I'm the Technical Service Lead and Product Specialist for Business Central at QBS Group. And today we are going to discuss two topics. First, I will start with the update specifically focusing on Business Central as part of the Dynamics 365 family. And then I would love to hand it over to Chris, which will cover more Dynamics 365 broad and the Power Platform as well. For Business Central, I would like to cover these topics, the highlights for the minor update 17.4 and some good to know information. A short look back at the new release notes, which were launched at the end of January and also already covered within the webcast of January. But I would like to mention a few of the highlights once again. And then I will close with some other relevant stuff with regards to Business Central. First, the highlights for 17.4, which is launched recently. The first point is that you're able to use recurring journals to allocate balances by dimension values. What does this mean? For example, your company has a couple of business units and a handful of departments. Could you please mute? And a handful of departments that your controllers have set up as dimensions. That's something very common. To speed up the purchase invoice entry process, for example, you decide to require the accounts payable clerks to enter only business unit dimensions. Because each business unit has specific allocation keys for the department dimension, such as based on the number of employees, you can use the balance by dimension or reverse balance by dimension. Those recurring methods to reallocate expenses for each business unit to the right department based on the allocation keys. Such balance allocation by dimension of source GL account is not possible using the balance or the reversing balance recurring methods. And those methods will ignore the dimension value on the source GL accounts and always allocate the full balance. But now, that this is the summary, but now you can use the BD, so the balance by dimension or the reversing balance by dimension as a recurring method to correct those entries. And the second one is the Teams app. Maybe you're all familiar with it. It reaches now general availability. So for example, you have the features that you're able to paste a link to any Business Central record, an item or a customer or project or whatever, into a Microsoft Teams chat. And it will expand into a compact card within Teams to share information with your team or whatever. And you're able to view the full card details in a window inside of Microsoft Teams, which now includes also fact boxes and other embedded content such as charts, for example. Good to know. OData v3 will be removed. It was already depreciated with the release of April 2020. So announced by Microsoft, they will depreciate it. And actually in the next release in April, they will actually remove it from the application. We mentioned it several times already that the basic authentication method, so the web service access key, will be removed by Microsoft. And it's good to know, and therefore I mention it once again, that that removal has been postponed until April 2022. And of course, the recommended substitution for this authentication method is to go with OAuth. On April 2nd this year, Microsoft will stop supporting the old Internet Explorer browser and also the Microsoft Edge legacy browsers to work with Business Central. So that's good to know, specifically if sometimes customers are using Internet Explorer for whatever reason. It's good to know that Microsoft will formally stop supporting this. Then the new release plan for wave 1 of this year. The release notes were announced and shared by Microsoft at January 27, and the link is included. And you as a partner and also as end customers has now the option to make use of the early access that started at the beginning of this month. So you're able to test and get familiar with some of the new features which will be rolled out in April and after April in the summer. And general availability for this release is announced for April 1st. But as you know, and based on experience, they will roll that out Azure region by Azure region. So it could happen that your turn is later in the month. So you will get it, for example, in the second half of April. And first time Microsoft is going to release the release notes in 11 additional languages. They are not out there yet. So for now, it's only English, but good to know that some local languages, especially for regions where they appreciate it, it's good to know that you're able to share the release notes in the local language. Then some highlights, like I mentioned before, already covered in the webcast of last month, but yeah, good to mention them once again. A few highlights are that you're able now to reassign one environment from one Azure Active Directory organization to another one. So that makes sense for situations where a company has been bought by another company, for example, or for whatever reason you would love to split it. Then you're now able to reassign an environment completely to a new Azure Active Directory. It's good to know that it's not something you can do on your own. You need to contact Microsoft support for that, but at least it's good to know that we now have that option. Word merge will be included within Business Central. So when you want to send a document to a lot of recipients, for example, to your customers, imagine as part of a sales campaign or whatever, you can now use Word's mail merge capabilities to personalize each document by pulling out data, about the recipients from Business Central. Some client performance improvements. For example, they already did something similar to the fact boxes earlier on, and that's quite a success. Now they would start more pages loading part by part. So if you go to a specific page, the top part will be launched first and already presented to the user, while parts further down on the page are still loading. And normally Business Central up until now, Business Central is waiting to everything is loaded and then presents you the page. But this will result in a much snappier experience for the end user, because it seems to be that Business Central is a lot faster to load. The report extensibility, also covered earlier. A very common scenario is to customize reports by adding more fields to the data set and modifying the layout. Until now, you would have to take full ownership of the report, of the report data set. For example, you create a copy of it just to make some small changes, and therefore forcing partners to maintain that full report. Once Microsoft has done an update, you need to check if that complete report still works. And with report extensibility, a new report extension object can be created with Edge, which adds just your new fields to the dataset of a layout. The last one I would love to mention is the improvements for the delegated administrators. You know that you as a partner can access your end customers' Business Central environments as a delegated admin. And with this release, Microsoft is going to enable dedicated admins to perform more actions, because maybe you know from experience the delegated admins, although they have super permission sets, they are not able to perform all the actions. For example, starting or restarting stopped job queues. And now regarding those job queues, partners acting as a delegated admin can now perform the pause of a job queue a restart of a job queue, and also run a job queue just for one time to see if the job queue works. Because it's good to know that the job queue needs to be scheduled actually by a full license user. So for example, you create job queues as a partner on the name of one of the users of your end customer. Now as a delegated admin, you're able to test them and also to restart them, which was not possible until today. Yeah, these were just a few of the highlights. If you would love to know more, please have a look at the webcast of last month, where I went in more detail around these new features, and also of course have a look at the release notes and also try the early access. Then some other stuff regarding Business Central. You are now able to check very easily if your app source app, so it's only applicable for app source apps, is ready for the next major release. For example, with Business Central 15, Microsoft marked a set of different things as obsolete, so we are going to remove this. And with Business Central 18, so the next version, these things will get removed actually from the application. So to check if your app source app is ready, Microsoft has launched a quick check. It's very easy. Simply use this URL and replace the latest information after the latest / your app ID, of course, with your app ID of your app source app. And then you're able to perform a very quick test if your app runs into problems because of, for example, the removings of the obsolete parts, as which has been announced earlier. And if you get a result something like this, so your app name, we did not find any problems with extension, then you know my app is ready for Business Central 18. Please remember that the app source validation has two important rules. Until March 1st, so nearly just a week to go, if your app is not compatible, Microsoft will contact you to submit a compatible version, and the validation of the current submission will not fail. If you start after March 1st, if your app then is not compatible, the validation will fail. From March 1st, Microsoft will also start sending notifications for per tenant extensions that are not compatible with Business Central 18 as well. But therefore, as a partner, you need to be a recipient in the Business Central Admin Center of that specific tenant. So if in that tenant there runs a per tenant extension which is not compatible, a notification will be sent by Microsoft to the notification recipients. So if you're one of them, then you will get an email, hey, this per tenant extension will not work with Business Central 18, so please take some action. Then some clarification about object ranges, because Microsoft last month Microsoft published some stuff and they that led to some confusion. First, they divided the object ranges in the RSP object range and the app object range. Very familiar for us. But then there's that last sentence. Currently, you can implement apps developed in both the RSP range and the app object range in Business Central online and on-premise, as well as partner hosted. And of course, for example, on Twitter, everyone reacts on that word currently. And Microsoft has confirmed that currently indicates that change may come, but they don't know if, when, or what. And of course, we all should be a smart guy, and we all know that these things are not there because Microsoft hasn't the intention to make any changes in the future, but it's simply not known when it will happen. But for now, Microsoft promises currently there are no changes upcoming on short term. And with the clarification on the Microsoft websites, they also created some confusion because the earlier Microsoft communicated that the 50K range was for testing purposes only. And we also got some questions from partners from, hey, I thought it was not only for testing purposes. You could also use it for per tenant extension as well. Microsoft has now clarified on their information websites that the 50K range is also available for per tenant extension, so per tenant customizations as well. So yeah, just some clarifications from Microsoft on earlier communications which led to some confusion. And that was basically it in this slow month of February for Business Central news. Like I said earlier, if you want to know more about the release notes, please have a look at last webinar. And with that, I would like to hand it over to Chris.
Thank you, William. Quick share of the screen there. Hopefully you're all okay and you can all see what I have delivered. Thank you. So just a few things to cover today. We know February's a short month, and on a news front, it's been quite quiet from a Dynamics 365 sales, service, marketing and Power Platform perspective. I'm just going to run through some of the updates in the Dynamics 365 licensing guide that have happened year to date. I'm going to highlight something that's particularly interesting to me from the Wave 2020, the Wave 2021 Release 1 plan around customer service and enhancements that have been made there. And then just cover off where you can learn more about that a launch event that Microsoft have decided to run. So if we look initially at the licensing guide, I guess there's just a few things in here that have been clarified recently that I want to call out. One was a clarification in the terminology around professional and enterprise SKUs. It used to state that they couldn't be mixed in the same environment. That's not technically true. It's been clarified in there now that they can't be matched within the same tenant, which is the way that it's always been designed. So it's good that that's actually been put into the guide. I think the second thing that I want to call out here is around the professional SKUs. Obviously, these are targeted more at the SMB side of the business. And it's a really interesting one. Actually, this was overlooked by many people, including myself. The statement from Microsoft around the base and attach licensing, the way in which they set up the base and attach licensing is that the base license for any user always had to be the more expensive of the base licenses across the board. And that was the case for customer service and sales professional, or customer service professional and sales professional. However, the licensing guide always stated it was acceptable to attach sales professional to the customer service base license. This was kind of indirect. It was contradictory to the Microsoft licensing statement for the CSP licenses. So that's also been clarified now. The bullet points in the document have been amended. So it's no longer, it never was really, but it's now officially documented. It's no longer possible to attach sales professional to customer service professional base. Thirdly, there has been some deprecation of SKUs. I think the one that I probably want to call out, particularly from a standalone application and capacity perspective, is customer service insights. It's included in the enterprise and customer service enterprise license. And I think the one thing that was perhaps missed also in January was around the customer voice entitlements. That's also been added to customer insights, where there's 2,000 responses per tenant per month now included in that license too. So not too many changes to the licensing guide, which is always a good thing. Some absolute clarifications in there. and some very specifics around deprecation of product. I think the thing that caught my eye, I've been looking at the Wave release guides. That's my mistake on the slide there. It's Wave 1 2021. Losing track of time already. So there were two new enhancements in customer service that I think are really interesting. These are both around increasing the ability to help an organization address any challenges presented by fragmented knowledge. So where many people hold the key to knowledge but reside in different parts of a business, and there's challenges then sharing that knowledge across different organizations. First off, what I saw was the ability to now access what Microsoft are referring to as knowledge analytics around searches and search terms and the levels of engagement with knowledge-based articles within the application. So that's been in public preview since October 2020. Obviously, it's very useful to see which knowledge-based articles are frequently accessed, the ones that are used, the ones that are read. However, more importantly, if you're looking to address customer service challenges, and if you want to deliver kind of enhanced customer care, the places where people are searching using terms and phrases that aren't returning any results or have a low engagement rate are equally, if not more important, because they highlight what is a gap in the knowledge base within an organization. So to help with these gaps in knowledge, the second part of the announcements that are coming in the 2021 Wave 1 for customer service are around an ability to provide a federated knowledge search that can access content from an external search provider. So as of the initial release, Microsoft have plans to include connectors for a few things. It states a cross Dynamics 365 search. It's still lacking in detail as to what that actually will deliver specifically. It also talks about a Microsoft search, which is the search that's used for Microsoft 365 apps and other external content indexed through their connectors. But the third thing that they've added, and also probably the most relevant, is a SharePoint search connector for the knowledge base articles. So that last connector for me has the potential to be very powerful. Anyone who knows how Microsoft Teams operates, they should also understand that the underlying file structure for documents uploaded to Teams is in fact the SharePoint component of Office 365. So the ability to include kind of rich documents where previously documents that you would need to attach to knowledge base articles, you could now store them in SharePoint or within kind of the Teams file storage SharePoint. That means they can then be easily retrieved through the customer service knowledge base. So not only is a wider collection of assets, documents and content available to customer service reps, but also that would enable a reduction in the need to store the documents directly within the knowledge base or within the Dynamics 365 application. In the in the times where cloud storage can be perceived as expensive, particularly within Dynamics 365 applications, and the data costs that go with that, I think there's a consulting opportunity here for any partners with customers that use Dynamics 365 customer service to work with SharePoint integration and to really help them manage the way in which they store, retrieve and address content in regards to knowledge base articles, potentially also removing blockers to migrations where customer service on premises is still being widely used. So that was the one thing really that I just wanted to pick out and call out today. I think I was eagerly awaiting this announcement. This session is normally quite informative. It normally covers off, they run these annually, it normally covers off the enhancements and showcases some of the core things in detail. Microsoft are running this slightly later than we kind of have come to used to this year. It's going to be on Tuesday, April the 6th. This is the day after Easter Monday. So for anyone who's going to be off with the schools or planning on taking time out to spend with family and potentially children, they've scheduled this on Tuesday, April the 6th, the day after Easter Monday. And obviously being a Pacific time zone, I make that 6 p.m. GMT, so I think that's 7 p.m. Central European time. Please check your calendars for exact timings. If you don't want to give up your evening watching that, then fortunately, I will be, and I'll be hopefully reporting back on some of the core concepts in a couple of months' time once that's all finalised. So that's it from me today. We did say it was kind of a slow month. It was a February month. I think please stay safe, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to listen. And Sander, do we have any questions, or would you like to close?
Chris, thank you so much. Until now, we have no questions. So again, if you have some questions around these two presentations, please use the chat window. Well, if not going to happen, then yes. Well, final word. Thank you, William and Chris. I think it was a great update. Thank you so much, and thank you all for participating in this session. As what I'm mentioning, this session is being recorded, so you always can track this information back in your email, which we send you later on. And well, then I have to say, well, hopefully we see each other next month again in our next March update. Thank you so much, and bye bye.